All right, welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we are tackling a massive headache that, honestly, almost every single English learner faces at some point. Like if you've ever found yourself pausing mid-sentence, totally panicked, wondering, wait, is it I do a mistake or I make a mistake? Well, you are in the exact right place. We're going to toss rote memorization right out the window today. Instead, we're focusing on the underlying concepts, the actual real-world logic of how native speakers think about the words do and make. By the end of this session, you won't just be guessing, you'll completely understand the mechanism behind the words.
So here's our roadmap. We'll start with the biggest English mistake, and then move right into our golden rule, process versus result. After that, we'll break down exactly when to use do and when to use make, run through some really important phrases and collocations, and finally, we'll wrap things up by testing your skills with some TOEFL and IELTS questions. Okay, let's jump right into section 1, the biggest English mistake.
So this is the translation trap. For learners coming from an Indonesian background, this right here is the ultimate pitfall. You see, the Indonesian word melakukan is wonderfully versatile. It essentially covers the general act of doing or making something. But when you try to translate that concept directly into English, it violently splits into two entirely different words, do and make. And because they share that exact same base translation in your head, it becomes incredibly easy to mix them up. But here's the thing. To a native English ear, interchanging these causes instant confusion, and it really disrupts your fluency.
Which brings us to section 2, our golden rule, process versus result.
To fix this whole translation trap, we have to move away from the dictionary rulebook, right? We need to step into a native speaker's mindset. And here is the golden rule. Do is entirely about the activity or the process itself. It's the journey of the action. Make, on the other hand, is completely focused on the result, the product, or the creation. It's the destination. So whenever you're looking at an action, you've got to ask yourself, am I focusing on the ongoing work here, or am I focusing on the thing that actually exists after the work is finished?
Now here's a mental trick to really lock that concept into your memory. When you think of the word do, I want you to picture a worker in a uniform, performing routine chores, sweeping, typing, washing. The work is ongoing. But when you think of make, picture a chef or a builder. A chef doesn't just do an activity, right? They take raw ingredients and they produce a cake. A builder creates a structure from nothing. The worker does, the creator makes.
Let's move to section 3, when to use do.
So let's look at how this builds into real-world applications. The formal definition of do means performing an activity, task, or job. But remember, the absolute focus here is the process. You're describing the physical or mental exertion required to complete a task without really worrying about some final, shiny product. It's all about just getting your hands dirty with the task itself.
Let's apply that worker metaphor to correct a few really common mistakes. You cannot make homework or make the laundry. Why? Because you aren't magically pulling homework out of thin air, and you definitely aren't manufacturing clothes from scratch. Instead, you do homework and you do the laundry. These are ongoing tasks. You're working on them. It's an activity, an obligation, a process. You are the worker here, performing the chore.
All right, section 4, when to use make.
Now let's switch gears and explore the more creative side of things. The formal definition of make is creating, producing, or causing something to happen. So here, the focus violently shifts away from the sweat and the process and lands squarely on the final result. You use make when at the end of your action, there's a distinct product or outcome that literally did not exist before you started.
And what's really fascinating here is how this rule handles both physical and abstract concepts. So saying do a cake or do a decision is completely wrong. A cake is a tangible product, right? You take flour and eggs and the final result is the cake. So it's make a cake. But look at that second example, make a decision. A decision isn't something you can physically hold in your hand, sure, but it is still a product. Your brain is acting as the builder, taking in information, and the final creation produced by your mind is the decision. So whether the result is physical or abstract, if it's a creation, it's make.
Moving on to section 5, important phrases and collocations.
We're going to ramp up the pace a bit now and look at how our golden rule applies to some everyday conversational phrases. First up, do your best, meaning to put in your best effort. This is a beautifully inspiring idiom, and it perfectly aligns with our rule. Why do? Because doing your best is all about the ongoing effort. It's the sweat, the energy, the process of trying your hardest, regardless of what the final outcome might be. It's that ultimate worker's mentality.
Conversely, we have make up your mind, which simply means to come to a decision. Notice how this one uses make. That's because you are actively producing a final thought. You're causing an outcome to exist. You've weighed all your options, and now you are constructing the final verdict.
Let's rapidly summarize our key worker tasks: homework, housework, exercise, research, business, the dishes, laundry, a favor. I want you to actively visualize the exertion required for these. Doing research is an ongoing investigative process. Doing a favor is performing a helpful task. Doing business is the ongoing activity of commerce. They are all processes. They all use do.
Now flip it and think about our key creator outcomes: a cake, breakfast, money, friends, progress, a decision, a mistake, a promise, noise. Visualize the products here. When you make money, you're generating an outcome. When you make friends, you're creating a brand new bond. Even make a mistake or make noise, you are literally causing an outcome to exist that wasn't there a minute ago.
Okay, Section 6. Test your TOEFL and IELTS skills. You've learned the theory, you've seen the metaphors, so now it's time to put you in the hot seat. Let's apply what you just learned using real, high-stakes exam scenarios. Here's your first challenge. I accidentally blank a mistake. So, do you use do or make? Apply the golden rule. Are you performing a routine task, or did you cause a specific outcome? Lock in your answer right now.
And the answer is made. I accidentally made a mistake. Why? Because a mistake is a result. It's an abstract product produced by your action, which makes you the unfortunate creator of that error.
All right, let's pose this second challenge. We need to blank more research before publishing the report. Take a second. Think about the word research. Is it a final product, or is it an ongoing investigative activity? Go ahead, lock it in.
The correct answer is do. We need to do more research. Research perfectly fits our worker profile. It's the ongoing process of gathering information, reading, and analyzing. The report itself might be what you make, but the research is absolutely what you do.
Let's speed through a few more advanced contexts. An announcement? Well, that's a product you deliver, so you make an announcement. A promise? That's an abstract creation, so you make a promise. A favor is an action you perform, so you do a favor. And causing someone to laugh? You're generating an emotion, so you make someone laugh. As you can see, the golden rule flawlessly applies every single time. Well, we have covered a tremendous amount of ground today. Remember, high-level exams like TOEFL or IELTS aren't just testing if you memorize dictionary definitions. They are aggressively testing if you understand context and collocations. They want to see if you know the difference between the ongoing process and the final result. Keep that worker and chef metaphor in your head, and you will literally never stumble over do and make again. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative thought. If translating the concept of doing too literally caused this much confusion, what other everyday words might you be translating just a little too literally in your head? Might be time to take a closer look. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.